Let my father go, and I'll get you back on your feet." The voice was thin, high-pitched but firm as tempered steel. The entire courtroom froze. 50 people held their breath at the same time. Lawyers stopped shuffling papers. Jurors turned their heads so fast that necks cracked. Prosecutor Dawson dropped the expensive pen he'd been holding. And behind the dark mahogany bench, Judge Harold Brennan's eyes widened, his hands freezing on the metal wheels of the manual wheelchair that had kept him seated for 5 long years. The girl stood right in the center of the aisle between rows of polished wooden benches. 9 years old, light brown hair pulled back in a ponytail she'd done crooked herself that morning, simple dress already getting too short, worn flats with a hole in the toe. Sophia Mitchell looked up with those enormous brown eyes, glazed with tears she refused to let fall. Her chin trembled, but her voice had come out steady. "I can heal you," she repeated louder now. "I know how to really heal, but I'll only do it if you release my dad." For 3 full seconds, no one breathed. The air was so heavy you could cut it with a knife. And then Prosecutor Ethan Dawson exploded in laughter, loud, cruel, rehearsed. He clapped slowly, standing with that smooth movement of someone who'd never worked a hard day in his life. Perfectly tailored Italian suit, shoes that cost more than 3 months of the Mitchell family's rent, gold watch gleaming on his wrist. Fantastic, simply fantastic. He spread his arms theatrically. "Now we have children doing circus tricks in court. What's next, Your Honor? Magicians pulling rabbits out of hats? Tightrope walkers?" The laughter spread like wildfire through dry grass. Defense attorneys chuckled under their breath. Guards hid smiles behind their hands. Even some jurors, who should maintain impartiality, let out nervous giggles. In the back of the room, an older woman tried to stand to pull Sophia back, but the girl had already moved away. Judge Brennan didn't laugh. He just looked at the girl with a complex expression mixing pity, irritation, and something darker. Something that looked like old, deep anger. His hands gripped the metal rims of the wheelchair until his knuckles turned white. "Child," he said, and his voice came out hard as stone, "return to your seat immediately before I order your forcible removal." "But I can." Sophia took 2 steps forward, small hands clenched into fists so tight her nails dug into her palms. "I can make you walk again. I swear on my life I can." "Sophia, don't." The broken voice came from the defendant's table, cutting through the murmur beginning to rise. John Mitchell was standing, or rather trying to stand, while 2 guards pushed him down. Metal handcuffs clinked at his wrists. Orange prison uniform 3 sizes too large for his thin body, shoulders curved with shame and desperation. His face was stained with tears he couldn't hide. "Sweetheart, please stop this now. You're only making it worse." "But Dad didn't do anything," Sophia screamed, and for the first time her voice cracked, revealing the child's desperation beneath the forced courage. She turned to the packed courtroom, to the dozens of faces watching her like she was some curious animal. "Everyone here knows he didn't. The judge knows." She pointed an accusing finger at Brennan. "Why do you want to imprison an innocent man? Why?" The gavel came down. Bang, bang, bang. 3 dry strikes that echoed like gunshots. "Order! Order in this courtroom!" Brennan struck twice more for good measure. "Guards! Remove this child immediately and deliver her to the care of a responsible adult." 2 large uniformed men began approaching from the side aisles. Sophia saw them coming but didn't run. She couldn't run. This was her only chance, the only card she had to play in this rigged game where rich men crushed poor people like stepping on ants. "I have a gift," she shouted, voice echoing to the high ceiling. "My grandmother had it. My great-grandmother had it before her. I can heal people, but you need to believe. You need to give me a chance." "A gift?" Dawson let out an even louder laugh. He walked until he was very close to Sophia, crouching to look into her eyes. His breath smelled of expensive coffee and mint. "Your Honor, this is clearly a desperate and pathetic attempt at emotional manipulation. I suggest the minor be referred to Child Protective Services immediately, since the father is about to be convicted and clearly taught the girl to be a third-rate con artist." The words hit John like punches to the gut. He tried to stand again, more violent this time. "Don't touch her. I swear to God, if you lay a hand on my daughter." "Silence!" The gavel struck with such force it cracked the wood of the bench. "Defendant, sit down now or you'll be charged with additional contempt." "Guards, restrain the prisoner." Heavy hands pushed John back into the chair. One of the guards held his shoulders firmly. The other was already grabbing Sophia by the arms, big fingers wrapping around her thin little arms. "Come on, girl. Don't make this difficult." Sophia didn't fight physically, but she didn't stop talking either. "You'll walk again. I promise I'll make you walk." She was being dragged backward now, flat scraping against the cold floor. "I know how to heal. I can prove it." 5 seconds, Brennan said, voice icy. 5, 4, 3... "Dad!" Sophia screamed. "Dad, I'll save you. I swear I will." 2, 1... The double wooden doors closed with a dull thud. Sophia's voice was cut off mid-sob. The silence that remained was the kind of silence that hurts your ears. Heavy, suffocating, embarrassing. Several people in the courtroom looked at their own shoes. A woman on the jury wiped away tears discreetly. Even Dawson looked uncomfortable for half a second before recomposing his mask of superiority. Judge Brennan looked at his own hands, resting on his motionless legs. Hands that still worked perfectly, full of strength to push the wheelchair's wheels, but connected to legs that hadn't responded to any command for 5 years. Legs that the best doctors from 3 states had tried to save without success. Legs that had cost $200,000 in experimental treatments that led nowhere. For a moment, just a moment, something passed through his eyes. It wasn't hope. Hope had died long ago. It was something more dangerous. It was the deep and desperate desire of a man who would give anything, even his soul, for a chance to walk again. But the moment passed. The mask of austere and implacable judge returned. He turned to John. "Mr. Mitchell, where were we?" "Ah, yes. The jury found you guilty of vehicular manslaughter, fleeing the scene of an accident, and possession of illegal substances with intent to traffic. These are extremely serious charges that resulted in the death of a promising young man." John could barely lift his head. He looked at the judge with red, swollen eyes. "I didn't do it. I swear on everything sacred that I didn't. Someone is framing me." Brennan flipped through some papers without really reading. "The evidence tells a very different story. We have your vehicle with impact marks consistent with a hit and run. We have forensic analysis showing the victim's blood on the front bumper. We have 5 kilograms of pure cocaine found in your shop during a legal search, and we have your well-documented history of severe financial difficulties as motive. It was all planted. I've never touched drugs in my life. I was an honest mechanic trying to support my daughter." "Was a mechanic?" Dawson stood again, adjusting his jacket. "Because now you're a convicted criminal who's going to spend the next few decades rotting in a cell." He walked until he stood right in front of John, so close that only the two of them could hear what came next. "And your little girl? Well, she's going into the system. Orphanages, foster homes. Maybe she'll get lucky and find a family that can handle a problematic and delusional child." John tried to stand, but the handcuffs and guards prevented him. "If you lay a finger on her, I swear—" "You'll do what?" Dawson whispered with a smile. "Sue me from prison? Hire a lawyer with what money? Face it, Mitchell, you lost. I won. That's how the world works. Men like me step on men like you and move on without looking back." The public defender assigned to the case, a man in his early 50s named Richard Peterson, finally stood. He had that appearance of someone who'd seen too much, lost too much, and stopped caring. Old briefcase, wrinkled suit, coffee-stained tie. "Your Honor, I request a brief 15-minute recess. My client is visibly shaken by the incident involving his minor daughter and—" "Denied." Brennan cut him off without even looking. "We've already wasted enough time on theater. Let's conclude this now." He picked up a typed paper, read in a monotone voice. "John Michael Mitchell, After careful consideration of the evidence presented, the severity of the crimes committed, and the irreparable impact caused to the family of victim Brian Peters, I sentence you to 16 years of imprisonment in a maximum security facility at Riverside State Penitentiary, without possibility of regime progression or parole before serving 7 full years. 16 years. The words fell on John like tons of concrete. 16 years. Sophia would be 25 when he got out. She'd be a grown woman. She wouldn't need him anymore, wouldn't even really know him. 16 years was a lifetime. It was longer than he'd spent with his own daughter. May God have mercy on your soul, Brennan continued, because this court certainly has none. Bang! The gavel came down one last time. The sound echoed, reverberated, died slowly, and with it died the last hope John had of embracing his daughter in freedom before she grew up completely. "No," John whispered, and then louder. "No! No!" He fought against the guards, desperate strength giving energy to exhausted muscles. "My daughter! I need my daughter! Please, just let me explain to her." "Take the convicted," Brennan ordered, already wheeling the chair to leave. 4 hands grabbed John by the arms and shoulders. He still tried to resist, feet dragging on the floor, but it was 2 large men against a thin, broken man. "Sophia! Sophia! Daddy loves you! Never forget that Daddy loves you!" No one answered. The side doors opened and John was pushed into the back corridor, the one prisoners used to avoid passing through the public. The door slammed. The sound of his screams was cut off. And just like that, in less than 30 seconds, a man was ripped from the life of the only person he loved in the world. In the courthouse's main corridor, Sophia sat on a hard wooden bench. Aunt Clara, her mother's younger sister, sat beside her, holding the girl's hand. "Let's go home, sweetheart. There's nothing more we can do here. I can save him." Sophia didn't lift her eyes from the floor. "I really can. I know you believe that, love." Clara squeezed the small hand. "But some paths have already been chosen. Sometimes all we can do is accept." "No." Sophia finally looked up. There was something different in her eyes. It was no longer a child's sadness. It was adult determination forged in the fire of loss. "I won't accept. I'm going to prove it. I'll prove it to everyone." Clara sighed. She didn't have children of her own, never wanted them. But now she was stuck with a 9-year-old niece who had just lost both parents and was clearly in shock. "Let's talk about it at home, okay? Now let's just get out of here." But as they walked toward the exit, Sophia turned her head. Through a glass window on the side, she saw it. Judge Brennan was being pushed by a young assistant through another corridor. The manual wheelchair squeaked slightly with each movement. The judge's legs hung inert, feet dragging slightly on the floor because they weren't positioned properly on the footrests. And it was at that exact moment that everything clicked in Sophia's head. The idea she'd tried to shout in court, the truth no one wanted to hear. She really could heal that man. She had the gift. She had the power. And if she could prove it, if she could make the impossible happen, maybe, just maybe, the judge would review her father's case. It was a crazy bet, a shot in the dark. The odds were smaller than finding a needle in a haystack, but it was the only chance she had. 3 years ago, when Sophia was 6, life was different, completely different. The family was still whole. Father, mother, and daughter. They lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in an old but decent building. Nothing luxurious, but it had love. It had laughter. It had dinners together every night where they'd share how each person's day went. John worked at the mechanic shop he'd opened himself 5 years earlier. It wasn't much. A rented garage with space for 2 cars, old but functional tools, small but loyal clientele. He worked Monday through Saturday, 7 in the morning to 7 at night. Dirty, hard work that left hands always stained with grease that soap never completely removed. But it was honest work, and it paid the bills, most months. His mother, Laura, gave private English lessons in the mornings, 5, 6 students a day at most, college students needing to pass exams, executives wanting to improve pronunciation, teenagers being forced by their parents. She charged cheap because she didn't have an official certificate, just natural fluency from having lived 2 years in the United States when she was young. The classes were in their own home, at the little kitchen table. Sophia would stay in her room doing homework while listening to her mother patiently repeating irregular verbs for adults who never learned. It was a simple life, tight, without luxuries, but it had happiness, the kind of happiness that doesn't need money to exist. It had Dad coming home tired, but always with a hug and, "How was school, princess?" It had Mom making pancakes on Sunday and letting Sophia lick the batter bowl. It had movie nights together on the old couch, all three sharing a blanket because the heater broke and there wasn't money to fix it. But then came the pain. Laura started feeling pains in her abdomen, not severe, just discomfort, like menstrual cramps that wouldn't go away. She ignored it for 2 weeks, took over-the-counter painkillers, tried herbal tea the neighbor recommended, but the pain got worse, went from discomfort to acute. From acute to unbearable. John took her to the emergency room on a Tuesday night. She was bent over in pain, sweating cold, barely able to walk. Sophia stayed with the neighbor, Mrs. Marta, a 70-year-old lady with 12 cats. "Your mother will be fine," Mrs. Marta said, offering homemade cookies. "Doctors will take good care of her." But doctors didn't know what it was. First, they thought it was appendicitis. They prepped for emergency surgery. They opened her up and found something worse, much worse, tumors, several, spread throughout her ovaries and starting to invade other organs. Cancer, stage 3, aggressive. John received the news alone in a freezing hospital corridor at 4 in the morning. The doctor was young, tired, and clearly didn't like the part of the job where he had to destroy people's lives with words. "Mr. Mitchell, your wife has advanced ovarian cancer. We'll start aggressive chemotherapy immediately, but I need to be honest about the statistics. 5-year survival rate for this stage is approximately 35%. 35%. Less than half. Less than a coin flip." John sat in a hard plastic chair and cried for the first time in 10 years. But he didn't give up. He sold everything of value he had. The better car, the most expensive tools from the shop, the gold wedding ring that had belonged to his grandfather. He took out loans, second, third, from loan sharks who charged 30% interest per month. It didn't matter. Laura needed the best treatment available, and it worked. After 8 months of hell, 8 months of Laura vomiting everything she ate, losing all her hair, getting so weak she couldn't get out of bed some days, the doctors gave the news. Remission. The cancer had receded. It wasn't cured, it was never cured, but it was controlled. Laura had won more time, but the cost was high, the debts were crushing. John now worked from 5 in the morning until midnight. He took any job that came up. Cheap repairs, dirty work other mechanics refused, emergencies in the middle of the night. Laura went back to teaching, even though she was still weak, even though she was still doing maintenance chemotherapy. They needed every penny. And it was during this period that Sophia started noticing things. Strange things, things that shouldn't be possible. The first time was with Mrs. Marta's cat. Mr. Whiskers was a fat orange cat who was always escaping to the street. One afternoon, Sophia was coming home from school when she saw Mrs. Marta crying on the sidewalk. Mr. Whiskers was lying on the asphalt. A car had run him over and fled. The body was motionless. Blood was dripping from his nose. Eyes open, but empty. "He died," Mrs. Marta sobbed. "My poor Whiskers died." Sophia was 6 years old. She didn't understand much about death yet, but she understood that Mrs. Marta was suffering. Understood that the cat who always purred when she petted him was broken, and something inside her wanted to fix it, wanted to help. Without knowing why, she knelt beside the body. "Don't touch, dear," Mrs. Marta said gently. "He's already gone." But Sophia had already placed her little hands on the orange fur. She closed her eyes and felt something hard to describe, like a very light electrical current leaving her, tingling in her arms, heat in her palms. The world spun a little, and then Mr. Whiskers opened his eyes, breathed, moved. Within 20 seconds he was standing meowing, rubbing against Sophia's ankle as if nothing had happened. Mrs. Marta screamed, "A miracle! Blessed be God! It's a miracle!" She grabbed Sophia in a tight hug. "You brought him back! You're blessed!" Sophia didn't feel blessed. She felt dizzy, nauseous. Her legs failed and she had to sit on the sidewalk until the world stopped spinning. I don't know what I did." "You did a miracle, child." Sophia went home confused. She didn't tell her parents anything. They already had too many worries. And besides, maybe it was nothing. Maybe the cat hadn't really been dead, just stunned. It happens. She'd read about it once. Animals sometimes seem dead but aren't. But then it happened again, and again, and again. The second time was with her own mother. Laura had just finished a heavy chemotherapy session. She came home pale, shaking, saying she just needed to lie down for a bit. Sophia was doing math homework in the kitchen. 20 minutes later, she heard a dull thud coming from the bedroom. She ran, found her mother collapsed beside the bed, trying to crawl toward the phone. Her face was grey, lips bluish, breathing shallow and rapid. "Sophia, call ambulance." Sophia picked up the phone, but before dialing, something pulled at her. That same feeling from before, deep instinct. She dropped the phone, knelt down, placed her hands on her mother's chest, closed her eyes, concentrated. The energy flowed, stronger this time, much stronger. Sophia felt like she was being emptied, like something essential was being sucked out of her and poured into her mother. Tingling became electric shock. Heat became fire. The room spun. She was going to faint, but she held on. One more second, one more. When she finally opened her eyes and removed her hands, her mother was sitting up, breathing normally, color returning to her face, confusion in her eyes. What happened?" "You fell." Sophia tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't work. Everything was spinning. I think I helped you." Laura looked at her daughter. Really looked. The way mothers do when they know something important and possibly dangerous is happening. "How did you help me?" "I don't know. I just felt I should put my hand there and then I felt something leaving me." Silence. Laura helped Sophia onto the bed, held her daughter tight. "Do you feel okay?" "Dizzy. Tired. Rest. Mommy will stay here." That night, after Sophia fell asleep exhausted, Laura told John everything. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, still in his dirty work uniform. "Honey, you were sick. Your body went into shock from the chemo and then recovered on its own. Sophia was there and thinks she helped, but it wasn't that." Laura cut him off firmly. "I know what I felt, John. My heart was failing. I felt it. And then she touched me and it was like a shock bringing everything back. You're suggesting our 6-year-old daughter has, what? Magic powers? Not magic. My grandmother had it. Teresa. You never met her. She died before we got married. But my mother always told stories. Grandma Teresa could heal people, animals, dying plants. People in the village called her a faith healer, said she had a gift from God." John rubbed his tired face. "And you believe that? I saw my mother take a nearly dead dog to Grandma's house. I was 8 years old. The dog had been poisoned. It was vomiting blood, convulsing. Grandma placed her hands on it. Stayed like that for about 5 minutes. And the dog improved. Completely. The next day it was running around in the yard. Coincidence? Or the dog wasn't as bad as it seemed. Grandma died at 41, John." Laura held his hand. "They say she wore herself out. That healing people drained her life until there was nothing left. She simply went to sleep one night and never woke up." The fear on John's face was visible. "You're saying that if Sophia has this gift, it could kill her?" "I don't know. I don't know anything. I just know we can't let her use it, not until we understand better." But children aren't good at following rules, especially rules about things that seem good. Sophia knew she'd helped the cat, knew she'd helped her mother, and when she saw suffering, something inside her pulled, wanted to heal, wanted to fix. The third time was with her own father. John had cut his hand deeply in an accident at the shop. A tool slipped, the blade went through his palm. He'd come home with his hand wrapped in a blood-soaked cloth. "I need to go to the hospital to get stitches," he said, trying to sound calm. But Sophia saw the pain on his face, saw the blood dripping on the floor. "Wait, Dad. Let me see." "Sophia, no, it's too bad. Not something for a child to see." "Please," John sighed. Let her unwrap the cloth. The cut was horrible, deep, going all the way across his palm. You could see the bright red of the open flesh. It needed 15, 20 stitches minimum. Sophia didn't hesitate. She placed both little hands over the wound, ignored the warm blood wetting her fingers, closed her eyes, breathed deep. The energy flowed, strong, powerful, more than the other times. Sophia felt like she was being turned inside out. The world didn't just spin, it broke into pieces and reassembled itself wrong. Nausea so strong she was sure she'd vomit, but she held on, concentrated, kept her hands steady even when she started shaking violently. When she finally removed her hands, the cut had closed, not completely. There was still a red, swollen line, but it wasn't bleeding anymore. The skin had united as if with invisible stitches. John's eyes widened. He turned his hand back and forth, flexed his fingers. It hurt, but it worked. What did you do?" Sophia collapsed into a chair. The world was a drunken carousel. "I don't know, Dad. I just wanted you to be better." That's when everything changed. Her parents had serious conversations with Sophia. Explained about great-grandmother Teresa, about the gift that apparently passed through the women in Laura's family, about how it was important, crucial, essential to keep it secret. "You can only do this in emergencies," Laura instructed, holding her daughter's little face between her hands. "And only with family or people very close to us. Never, never in public. Do you understand why? Because people won't believe. No, love, because some people will believe too much, and they'll want to use you, study you. There are bad people in the world who would do anything to have that power." Sophia was a child, but she wasn't stupid. She understood. She started hiding the gift like a secret, only used it when absolutely necessary, learned to dose it, not to drain herself completely, to heal enough to help without passing out afterward. The months passed. Laura continued in remission. John continued working himself to the bone. Sophia continued going to school and being a normal child, except for the secret she carried, except for the times she saw a classmate crying with a scraped knee and had to clench her fists not to help. And then, a year and a half after remission, her mother's cancer came back. It didn't come back slowly. It came back like a tsunami, more aggressive, faster, spread to more places. Doctors tried a new round of chemotherapy. It didn't work. They tried experimental immunotherapy that cost everything the family had plus 30,000 in loans. It didn't work. In 6 months, Laura went from walking and laughing to bedridden. In 8, she could barely speak. In 9, doctors said it was a matter of days. Sophia tried. Every night she placed her hands on her mother and sent everything she had, and it worked. For a few hours, Laura would improve, could sit up, eat, talk, smile. But it always passed. The cancer was too big, too strong, too spread out. It was like trying to empty the ocean with a leaky bucket. "Stop, sweetheart," Laura whispered one night. She was so thin she looked like a skeleton. Eyes sunken, yellowed, hair completely gone, skin stretched over bones. "You're killing yourself. I feel you getting weaker every time." "But I can heal you. I just need to try harder, try stronger." "No, dear, you can't." Laura took Sophia's little hands with fingers that felt like twigs. "Some paths have already been chosen. It's not your fault. It's not anyone's fault. It's just life." "No, Sophia cried, tears falling on the thin blanket. "I won't let you go, I won't." "Hey," Laura wiped the tears with a weak caress. "You have an incredible gift, a present, but you can't waste it trying to change the impossible. Save it. Use it when you can really help, when you can really save someone. Promise, Mummy?" Sophia didn't promise. Not that night, not the nights after. She kept trying, every dawn, while her father slept exhausted on the couch because he couldn't enter the bedroom and watch his wife waste away. Sophia stayed beside the bed, placing her hands, concentrating, draining every drop of energy she had. Until one morning, 3 weeks after that conversation, Sophia woke up and her mother didn't wake up with her. Laura had passed during the night, in silence, without pain. She simply closed her eyes and decided she was too tired to keep fighting. Beside her in bed, Sophia still slept, completely exhausted from trying so hard to heal the incurable. She'd given everything, absolutely everything, and it hadn't been enough. The funeral was small, simple casket that John barely managed to pay for. Few friends, many tears. The priest said beautiful words about eternal life and peace and other concepts that brought no comfort to an 8-year-old girl who had just lost her mother. John held Sophia the whole time, firm arm around her small shoulders, and she held him back. The two of them were all that remained now, a family of 2 people trying to figure out how to continue when half of them had disappeared. "I should have been able to," Sophia whispered at the graveside, watching the casket being lowered into the red earth. "It wasn't your responsibility, Princess." John knelt beside her, also crying. "Your mother was very sick, too sick. There's nothing you or I or any doctor in the world could have done. But I tried so hard. I know. Your mother knew, and she loved you for trying." Life continued because life always continues, even when it seems impossible. John went back to the shop, worked even more now, trying to pay the medical debts that remained. Sophia went back to school. Teachers were kind. Classmates were children. Some were nice. Others asked insensitive questions. One said Sophia's mother had died because God was punishing the family for something. Sophia almost used the gift that day, almost placed her hand on the girl who had said that, and drained her until she passed out. But she didn't, because she'd promised her mother, had promised to save the gift for when she could really help. So Sophia stopped using it completely, locked that part of herself in a mental box and threw away the key. She was afraid that each time she used it, it took a piece of her own life. She was afraid of ending up like great-grandmother Teresa, dead at 41, drained from giving so much to others. 1 year passed slowly and painfully. Sophia turned 9. Birthday without a party because there was no money. John turned 52. Birthday that no one celebrated. They survived, woke up, went to work and school, came back, ate in silence, slept, repeated, until that Tuesday came. The Tuesday that changed everything. It was late October, cold night with light rain. John had received an emergency call from a wealthy client. Important businessman with a luxury car that had stopped working. He was offering double the normal price for John to fix it that same night because he needed the car for an important meeting early in the morning. John couldn't refuse. He needed the money. The medical debt still weighed like a mountain. He called Aunt Clara to stay with Sophia. "I'll work late. Can you sleep there?" "Of course, John. Don't worry." Aunt Clara was Laura's younger sister. Single elementary school teacher, lived alone with 3 dogs. She liked Sophia and Sophia liked her, but there was a distance. Always had been. Aunt Clara was good at being an aunt. She wasn't good at being a mother substitute. John left at 8 at night. The repair took 3 hours. Car had a complicated electrical problem that required replacing the entire wiring. At 11, he finally finished, charged, thanked, and started heading home. He was tired, the kind of tired that gets into your bones and doesn't leave. Eyes burning, back aching, hands still stained with grease that soap never removed. He drove his old pickup through the empty streets, thinking about getting home, taking a shower, falling into bed. He decided to cut through Riverside. It was a poorer neighborhood, bad lighting, some streets without pavement, but it saved 15 minutes. And John just wanted to get there. He was stopped at a red light, the only car on the street, when he saw the headlights. A black car, luxury convertible, coming down the perpendicular street. Too fast. Way too fast. John frowned. That speed was suicidal on a residential street, and then it happened. A young man was crossing at the pedestrian crosswalk, coming from the bakery that stayed open until midnight, bag of bread in his hand, earbuds in, didn't see the car, and the car didn't brake. The impact was horrible, sound of metal against flesh. The body flew 3 meters in the air, spun, fell with a dull thud in the middle of the street. The bread bag exploded. Little rolls scattered across the wet asphalt from the rain. The black car skidded, braked violently, stopped. For 5 full seconds it didn't move. John could see the driver looking in the rearview mirror, calculating, deciding. And then the tires squealed. The car accelerated and turned the corner at high speed, disappearing into the night. John didn't think. Instinct took over. He got out of the pickup and ran, bad knees protesting. The body was lying face down. Young man, early 20s, grey university hoodie, blue jeans, sneakers still new, blood starting to form a pool. Son, can you hear me? John turned the body carefully, checking pulse. Weak, very weak. The skull was caved in on the left side. Blood coming from nose, ear, mouth. Hold on, I'll call for help. But when John pulled out his phone, he saw another phone lying 2 meters away. The young man's. The screen was cracked but still lit, and it was recording. The young man had been making a video, probably for social media, when he was run over. John's hands trembled when he picked up the device, opened the gallery. The last video was there. Shaky, strange angle, but it showed everything. Showed the black car coming at high speed, showed the license plate, and for half a second, when the driver looked in the rearview mirror, it showed his face. John knew that face. Everyone in the city knew it. Ethan Dawson, the public prosecutor, son of Mayor Theodore Dawson, the rising star of the dominant political party, the man who had a conviction rate of 97% and was being groomed for state attorney general. No. John looked between the body and the phone. The young man no longer had a pulse, had died in the last 30 seconds, alone, in the cold, in the rain, and the man responsible had fled like a coward. John knew what he had to do. Call the police, turn over the evidence, do the right thing. But a tiny, frightened voice in the back of his head whispered danger. Men like Dawson didn't fall easily. Men like Dawson had resources, connections, power. But a young man was dead. A young man with a mother, father, maybe siblings. A young man with dreams and plans and a future that had been ripped from him in half a second of recklessness. John put the phone in the inside pocket of his jacket. He'd go to the station. Turn it in anonymously if necessary. He'd make sure justice was done. The siren started wailing in the distance. John frowned. He hadn't called yet. How did the police already know? And then he saw the cars. 4 patrol cars turning different corners, coming from different directions, all converging on that point, as if they already knew, as if they were already coming. Hands where I can see them! Step away from the body now! 6 police officers jumped from the cars, weapons drawn. John raised his hands instinctively, heart racing. I didn't do anything. I saw the accident and stopped to help. Of course you did. The lead officer was a big man, scar across his cheek, smile with no humor at all. Mr. John Mitchell, you're being arrested for the vehicular manslaughter of Brian Peters. The world stopped. How did they know his name? How did they know the victim's name? This had happened less than 5 minutes ago. How do you... I don't understand. You don't need to understand. You just need to come with us. The officer signaled. Search the suspect. Look for drugs, weapons, and especially cell phones. That's when John understood. Dawson had called, had reported John before fleeing, had flipped the story completely, and they were looking specifically for the phone. They knew about the evidence. Rough hands grabbed John, started searching, patted the pockets. John had seconds to decide. If they got the phone, the evidence would disappear, would be destroyed, and John would go to prison for a crime he didn't commit with nothing to defend himself. In the second before the hands reached the inside pocket, John did something desperate. He let the phone slip from his hand. It fell to the ground, and with a quick movement of his foot, John kicked it under his own pickup, where it stayed hidden in the shadow of the wheels. "Anything?" the leader asked. The officer who was searching finished checking all the pockets. Wallet, keys, his own phone, handkerchief, nothing suspicious. "Where's the other phone?" "What other phone?" The leader gritted his teeth, frustrated. He walked in circles, looking at the ground with his flashlight, but he saw nothing. "Must have fallen in the sewer. Take him and impound the vehicle. I want this tin can searched centimeter by centimeter at the impound lot." John was handcuffed, pushed into the patrol car. His pickup was towed before the ambulance even arrived to get the body. All very fast, very efficient, very rehearsed. In the back seat of the patrol car, John closed his eyes. The evidence was lost, hidden under a pickup that was going to be torn apart at the police impound. They'd find it, they'd destroy it, and John would have nothing. But 3 days later, when the pickup was searched thoroughly, the phone wasn't found. Because that rainy night, after towing the vehicle, a sanitation worker doing the night shift had passed by the scene, had seen the phone lying underneath, where the tow truck had temporarily left the pickup, picked it up thinking it was a lost phone, took it home, never looked at the videos. Eventually the phone stayed in a drawer, forgotten. The evidence existed, but no one knew where. The following days were a nightmare. John was interrogated for 12 hours straight. Lawyers appointed a public defender, a tired man named Peterson, who had 80 active cases and couldn't give proper attention to any of them. The evidence started appearing. Forensic analysis showed Brian Peters' blood on John's pickup bumper. Microscopes found fragments of the grey hoodie fabric in the metal's cracks. Witnesses saw John's pickup in the area at the time of the accident. And then came the search of the shop. 8 police officers. Warrants signed by Judge Brennan. They ransacked everything and found 5 kilograms of pure cocaine hidden in a false wall behind the tool bench. John watched it all from behind bars. "This is a setup. I never touched drugs." "Someone planted that. It's always a setup," the police chief said, bored. "No one's ever guilty." The case was built perfectly. Poor mechanic with documented history of crushing debts, involved with trafficking to pay bills, runs over wealthy young man in robbery attempt gone wrong, flees, captured by competent police, clean story, no holes, no complications. And the prosecutor on the case? Ethan Dawson personally. He wanted to make sure John was completely destroyed. Sophia saw her father arrested on TV. She was at Aunt Clara's house doing math homework. The TV was on the news. "Mechanic arrested for homicide and drug trafficking," the anchor said in a neutral voice. And then they showed her father being led from the police station to prison, hands cuffed, head down, orange uniform. "No!" Sophia screamed. "Dad didn't do that! He didn't!" Aunt Clara turned off the TV quickly, hugged the girl. "I know, sweetheart. I know your father is innocent. We'll prove it. We'll hire a good lawyer and prove it." But they didn't have money for a good lawyer. They barely had money for a bad lawyer. Peterson did what he could with the resources he had, which was almost nothing. Own investigation? Impossible. Alternative witnesses? Didn't have any. Evidence contradicting the prosecution? Non-existent. 3 months later came the trial. Jury was already predisposed. Media had painted John as a criminal. Dawson presented a perfectly rehearsed case. False witnesses, planted evidence. Tears from Brian Peters' family, who truly believed John was guilty. And then came the sentence. 16 years. And Sophia had done the only thing she could think of. She'd offered the impossible. Now, 3 weeks after that day in court, Sophia sat in the public library. Aunt Clara thought she was doing research for a school project. She wasn't. She was researching Judge Harold Brennan, the old, slow computer-loaded page by page. Sophia had written everything down in a notebook. Brennan was 58 years old, had been a judge for 23 years, married, 2 adult children living in other states, and 5 years ago, car accident, head-on collision. Truck ran a red light and hit the judge's car, head-on. The wife died on impact. Brennan survived, but with severe spinal injury, vertebrae T12 and L1 fractured, complete paralysis from the waist down, permanent wheelchair according to all the doctors he consulted. He'd tried everything. Experimental surgeries, stem cells, electrical stimulation, intensive physical therapy, spent over $300,000 on treatments. Nothing worked. The legs simply didn't respond. Sophia closed the notebook. She knew what she needed to do. She needed to prove she had the gift. She needed to heal the judge. And when she did that, when she made the impossible happen, maybe, just maybe, he'd have enough gratitude to review her father's case. It was a crazy plan. The odds were minimal, but it was the only chance she had. The problem was getting close to the judge. He didn't give public audiences, didn't meet random people, had security, a driver, protected life of an important man. Sophia needed another moment, another courtroom, another chance to be in the same room as him. But her father's trial was over. John was in prison. There were no more hearings. So Sophia did something she'd never done, something dangerous. She researched future cases that Brennan would judge. They were public. Anyone could attend. And next Thursday, he was going to preside over a complicated custody case. Mother trying to take children from abusive father. It would be long. There would be several people in the room. Sophia could be there, could wait for the right moment. And then, "Sophia, are you okay?" She jumped, closing the notebook quickly. Aunt Clara was behind her, shopping bags in hand. "I finished shopping early. Are you ready to go?" "Yes, Aunt. I was just finishing research." On the way home, Sophia looked out the car window. Houses passing by, people living normal lives. And here she was, a 9-year-old girl, planning something impossible. But she had to try. For her father, for the only father she had left in the world, she had to try. Thursday arrived with grey sky and cold. Sophia told Aunt Clara she wanted to go to the library after school. "I have a big project. I'll stay until 5. Want me to pick you up?" "Don't need to. I can come back by bus." Aunt Clara hesitated. She didn't like letting Sophia alone on public transportation, but the girl had been insisting on independence lately. "Okay, but call when you leave." "I will." Sophia didn't go to the library, went straight to the courthouse, arrived at 2 in the afternoon. The custody hearing had already started. She entered quietly, sat on the last bench, trying to be invisible. The courtroom was half full. Family members of those involved, social worker, some lawyers waiting for other cases, and there in front, behind the high bench, was him, Judge Brennan in the manual wheelchair, black robe, serious expression as he listened to the mother's tearful testimony. Sophia observed, waited. The case was complicated. Many witnesses, many breaks. At 4 in the afternoon, Brennan announced a 15-minute recess. An assistant came to push his chair out. Sophia stood up, followed at a distance, saw them going to the judge's private area. Door with security in front, impossible to enter, but then the assistant left. "I'll get coffee. Can you manage alone for 15 minutes, Your Honor?" "Of course. I'm not going to run away." The humorless joke echoed in the empty corridor. The assistant left. The guard was checking his phone, distracted, and the door had been left ajar. Sophia didn't think, just acted. Entered quickly. Door closed softly behind her. She was in a narrow corridor, 3 doors. One had a sign, Judge H. Brennan. She knocked lightly. "Come in." She opened. The room was small. Desk, bookshelf, window overlooking parking lot. And Brennan in his chair positioned near the window, looking out. He turned when he heard the door, saw Sophia. Expression changed from neutral to surprise to recognition. "You, the girl from the other day." "Yes, sir. How did you get in here? Where's the guard?" He was distracted. I need to talk to you." Brennan pressed a button on the desk phone. "Security, we have a—" "Please." Sophia took a step forward. "Just 1 minute. Just let me prove it." Prove what? That you're crazy? That your guardians can't control you? That I can heal. Sophia stopped 3 meters from him. Let me try. If it doesn't work, I'll leave and never bother you again. But if it works what? I set your criminal father free. My father is innocent. The jury decided differently. The jury was wrong. The tears finally started falling. Sophia couldn't hold them anymore. Please, Judge, sir. Just give me a chance. One chance to show I'm not a liar. One chance to... To what? Heal me? Brennan laughed, but it was laughter without joy. Just bitterness. Girl, I spent $300,000 with the best doctors from 3 states. Nothing worked. You think your little hands will perform a miracle that hundreds of thousands of dollars didn't. I know it seems impossible. Sophia wiped the tears with the back of her hand. My great-grandmother had this gift. My mother told me about her. She healed people in the village, animals. I inherited it from her. Faith healer. Brennan shook his head. You're a child. Someone put this ridiculous idea in your head, and now you actually believe it. I healed the neighbor's cat that had been run over. I healed my mother when she had a crisis. I healed my father when he cut his hand. Coincidences, or exaggerations, or complete lies? Sophia clenched her fists. I tried to heal my mother when she was dying of cancer. I tried every night for months. She'd improve for a few hours and then get worse again. In the end, I couldn't save her. But I tried. I felt the power leaving me. It's not a lie. The mention of the dead mother made Brennan pause. He studied Sophia more carefully, saw a 9-year-old child with deep, dark circles, simple worn clothes, shoes with a hole, hair that she clearly combed herself because she didn't have a mother to do it. And in her eyes, the desperation of someone who'd already lost too much. My wife died in the accident that left me like this, he said quietly. They buried her while I was in an induced coma after surgery. I woke up widowed and paralyzed on the same day. So, I understand loss. Then you understand why I need to save my father. He's all I have left. Your father is a convicted criminal. My father is innocent, Sophia shouted. Prosecutor Dawson set everything up. He was the one who ran over that young man. My father saw it and tried to help and got framed. Brennan frowned. Those are very serious accusations. They're true. My father told me everything, but nobody believes, because Dawson is rich and powerful, and my father is just a poor mechanic. If your father is innocent, he should have proven it at trial. How? Sophia took a step closer. He didn't have money for a good lawyer. All the evidence was planted. Nobody investigated properly because Dawson has the mayor as his father. The guard opened the door at that moment. Your Honor, I'm sorry I didn't see her come in. It's fine, Marcus. Brennan raised his hand. Just a lost girl. You can return to your post. The guard hesitated. Are you sure? Yes. Close the door. The door closed. Sophia and Brennan were alone. The silence was heavy. The judge wheeled his chair to face her completely. You have 1 minute, he said. 60 seconds to convince me that it's not a complete waste of time to hear what you have to say. Sophia took a deep breath. Let me try to heal you now. Here. If it doesn't work, I'll leave and never come back. But if it works, if you feel something, anything, then promise you'll look at my father's case again. Promise you'll investigate properly. You're asking me to reverse a jury decision based on magic trick. It's not a trick, it's real. Sophia was crying openly now. Please, I have nothing left. I have no one left. My father is going to spend 16 years in prison for something he didn't do, and I'm going to grow up alone and broken and... Her voice failed completely. Brennan looked at that destroyed child. He'd seen many things in 23 years as a judge. He'd seen professional liars, skilled manipulators, convincing actors. But looking at Sophia, all he saw was genuine desperation from a child who truly believed what she was saying. And more than that, he saw himself, saw his own desperation in the first months after the accident, when he would have done anything, believed in anything, tried anything for a chance, just one chance, to walk again. All right, he said softly, one attempt, but when it doesn't work, you promise you'll stop this. You'll go home. You'll let adults deal with your father's situation through appropriate channels. Sophia wiped her face, nodded. I promise. And I'm not going to review the case, because it won't work. But I'll give you 1 minute for you to convince yourself of that. Fair. Fair. Brennan indicated his own legs. So do your magic, healer. Sophia approached slowly, knelt in front of the chair. Her hands trembled when she reached for the judge's inert legs. They were covered by black dress pants. She placed her palms on his knees, closed her eyes, took 3 deep breaths, concentrated on everything her mother had taught in the final months. Visualize the energy. Feel it flowing. Don't force it. Just guide it. At first there was nothing, just the touch of warm hands on cold legs. Brennan watched with an expression between pity and impatience. 30 seconds passed, 40, 50, and then Sophia felt it. It started small, a light current, familiar tingling rising through her arms. She concentrated harder, let it flow stronger. The energy started leaving her in waves. Brennan felt it too. For 5 years he hadn't felt anything below the waist. 0. Complete emptiness. But now there was something, heat perhaps, or tingling, or just desperate imagination. He didn't know. Continue, he whispered. Sophia increased the intensity. More energy, more power. The world started spinning. Nausea rose, but she held on, had to hold on, had to prove it. The heat increased. Brennan felt it clearly now. It wasn't imagination, it was real sensation, like needle pricks, like a numb limb coming back to life. Wait, I'm feeling something. Sophia opened her eyes. Sweat was dripping down her forehead. You feel it? Yes, it's warm and tingling. Brennan looked at his own legs as if they were alien. This isn't possible. Try to move, Sophia asked. Try to move your toes. Brennan concentrated, sent the mental command he'd sent thousands of times in the last 5 years with no result. Move. Please, just move. And something happened. Small, almost imperceptible. But the big toe on his right foot moved. 1/2 centimeter, maybe less. But it moved. My God, Brennan whispered. My God, I moved, I felt, and I moved. Sophia smiled, but was getting pale. The energy was draining fast, too fast. It needs more time, more sessions. I can't heal everything at once, or you what? My great-grandmother died doing this. She healed too many people and wore herself out. Sophia removed her hands, staggered backward. Brennan extended his arm instinctively and caught her before she fell. You need a doctor. No, I just need to rest. Sophia sat on the floor leaning against the wall. The world was spinning violently. A few hours and I'll be fine. Brennan looked at his own legs, moved his toes again. Not much, not normal, but more than he'd moved in 5 years. I don't know what this is. It's real, Sophia said weakly. I didn't lie. Heavy silence fell. Brennan processing the impossible that had just happened. Sophia trying not to pass out on the floor of a federal judge's office. Finally, Brennan spoke. Even if this is real, even if you have some gift, I can't simply reverse a jury verdict. It doesn't work that way. There's process, there's law. But you can look again. You can order a new investigation. Based on what? Accusations from a 9-year-old child. Based on justice. Sophia found strength to look in his eyes. Why did you become a judge? To follow blind rules, or to do what's right? To follow the law? And if the law was wrong? If the system was wrong? My father is rotting in a cell for a crime he didn't commit, while the man really guilty walks free. Is that justice? Brennan rubbed his tired face. You don't know what you're asking. If I reopen the case and find nothing, your hope will be crushed again. Maybe it's kinder to let you accept reality. Reality is that my father is innocent, and if you don't help, no one will. I need evidence, something concrete. I can't act just on emotion. Sophia thought hard through the fog of exhaustion. Evidence, evidence. What had her father said? That he'd seen everything, that there was a phone, that there was a recording. But the phone disappeared. Police tore everything apart and didn't find it. Unless it was still out there, somewhere. The victim's phone, she said. Brian Peters. He was recording when he was run over. My father saw the video. It shows everything. Shows the car. Shows the license plate. Shows Dawson's face. If that phone existed, police would have found it. Not if my father hid it before being searched. He said the phone fell. That police didn't find it. Maybe it's still there. Maybe isn't enough. Then investigate. Send someone to look. Do something. Sophia tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't work. She fell back down, sitting. Brennan picked up the phone. Marcus, call an ambulance. I have a minor needing medical attention. No, Sophia protested. I don't need a hospital. I just need you to promise you'll look at the case. I can't promise that. Then I'm not leaving. I'll stay here until I pass out or until you agree. That's blackmail. It's desperation. Sophia's eyes closed on their own. Exhaustion weighed like tons. Please, just look again. Brennan watched the girl fighting unconsciousness. He moved his toes again. 5 years with nothing. And now, after 60 seconds with this child movement, sensation, impossible but real. If she could make the impossible happen in his legs, maybe, just maybe her father really was innocent. All right, he said softly. I'll look. I don't promise anything beyond looking, but I'll review the case personally. I'll check the evidence. If there's any indication of irregularity, I'll order an appropriate investigation. Sophia opened her eyes. You promise? I promise. Brennan extended his hand. But now you're going to the hospital, and you're going to rest, and you're not going to do any more healing until you're completely recovered. Understood? Sophia shook his hand with surprising strength for someone so drained. Understood. The ambulance arrived 15 minutes later. Paramedics checked Sophia. Low blood pressure, severe dehydration, exhaustion, nothing that fluids and rest wouldn't solve. Aunt Clara was called, arrived terrified. She passed out at the library, Brennan lied gently. Security brought her to me. I think she didn't eat lunch properly. Clara hugged Sophia tight. You gave me such a scare. At the hospital, Sophia spent the night under observation. Aunt Clara slept in the chair beside her, and Sophia, despite the exhaustion, couldn't stop thinking. The judge had promised to look at the case. It was a beginning. Small, but it was a beginning. Brennan went home that night in silence. The assistant helped him into the adapted car. The driver drove, and during the entire trip, Brennan moved his toes. Left, right, left, right. Movement he'd lost 5 years ago. Movement that doctors swore would be impossible to recover. Movement that a 9-year-old child had restored in 60 seconds. If this was real, then everything he thought he knew about the world was wrong. The next morning, Brennan had his trusted assistant called. A private investigator who'd worked with him for 10 years. Thomas, I need you to review a case. Discreetly. Which case, sir? State versus John Mitchell. Vehicular manslaughter and trafficking. Convicted 3 weeks ago. Wasn't that the case where the little daughter made a scene? Exactly that one. Brennan pushed a folder across. I want you to review every piece of evidence, every witness, every report, and especially I want you to look for a phone from victim Brian Peters. Officially never found, but maybe it's still out there. Thomas flipped through the folder. Do you think there was irregularity? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. The investigation took 2 weeks. Thomas was good, meticulous. He retraced the police's steps, interviewed witnesses again, checked dates, times, reports, and he found problems, many problems. The witness who saw John's pickup at the scene had a history of 3 arrests for perjury, had received payment of 5,000 reais 2 days before giving testimony, deposited by a shell company. The blood analysis on the bumper had been done by a private lab hired by the prosecution, not by the police's official forensic lab, and the technician responsible had been fired 6 months later for falsifying results in another case. The drugs found in the shop had serial numbers that didn't match any recent seizures, as if they'd come from old stock, maybe from seizures from years ago. And most importantly, Thomas found the sanitation worker. It took time, but he found him. A 60-year-old man named Roberto who worked the night shift cleaning streets. He remembered that night, remembered the accident scene, remembered finding a phone lying there. "I took it home," Roberto said. "Thought someone had lost it. I kept waiting for them to call so I could return it, but nobody called." "Do you still have it?" "I do. It's in a drawer in the kitchen." Thomas almost didn't believe it when he saw it. The phone was there, cracked screen, dead battery, but intact. He took it to a specialist technician. They recovered the data. And it was all there. Brian Peters' last video. Shaky, poorly filmed, but showing everything. The black car coming at high speed. The license plate. And for 1 second, when the driver looked in the rear-view mirror, Ethan Dawson's face clearly visible. Thomas brought everything to Brennan, placed the phone on the desk, showed the video. "Sir, this changes everything." Brennan watched 3 times. The first time with shock, the second with rage, the third with cold determination. "Dawson." "Yes, sir," without any doubt. And he set everything up to frame Mitchell. Based on the evidence, yes. He used his father's resources, corrupt police, private lab, paid witness. It was a well-orchestrated operation. Brennan closed his eyes. An innocent man was imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit. A child had lost her father, and he, a judge sworn to protect justice, had been a piece of this injustice. "Convene an emergency hearing," he ordered. "Tomorrow, 8 in the morning. I want Mitchell, I want Dawson, I want everyone involved in this case in my courtroom, and I want federal prosecutors investigating this too. It's going to cause a scandal, sir. Dawson is the mayor's son. I don't care. Justice has no surname. In prison, John received notification that he had an emergency hearing in the morning. They didn't explain why. He assumed it was some formality, maybe denial of appeal, maybe transfer to maximum security prison. He didn't expect hope. Sophia found out through Aunt Clara, who received an official call. "You were summoned too, as a witness." "I don't know for what." Sophia knew. The judge had kept his promise, had looked, had found something. She barely slept that night. Part excitement, part fear. What if it wasn't enough? What if Dawson had a way to escape again? At 7 in the morning, she and Aunt Clara were at the courthouse. The room was different this time. Besides John and Dawson, there were men in suits Sophia didn't recognize. Federal lawyers, investigators, and media. Lots of media being kept outside. Brennan entered at 8 sharp, the wheelchair being pushed by the assistant. He looked different, harder, more determined. He struck the gavel once. "State versus John Mitchell case. Extraordinary session for presentation of new evidence. Mr. Mitchell, please stand." John stood confused, looked at Sophia in the back of the room. She gave a small smile. "Mr. Mitchell," Brennan continued, "3 weeks ago I sentenced you to 16 years in prison for vehicular manslaughter and drug trafficking. Today, after independent review of the evidence, I discovered serious irregularities, very serious ones." Dawson stood. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. Sit down, Prosecutor Dawson, or should I say Defendant Dawson." The courtroom went absolutely silent. Dawson turned pale. How dare you? "Thomas, present the evidence." The investigator stood, placed the phone on a table, connected it to a projector. The large screen on the wall lit up, and everyone watched. Brian Peters' video, the hit and run, the car, the license plate, the face. Ethan Dawson fleeing the scene of the crime he himself committed. The silence that followed was deafening. Dawson tried to stand. 2 federal police officers pushed him back down. "Ethan Dawson, you're being arrested for vehicular manslaughter, fleeing the scene of an accident, obstruction of justice, perjury, and conspiracy to frame an innocent person." "You can't! My father is the mayor!" "I have rights, and you lost them when you decided to destroy an innocent man's life." Brennan turned to John. "Mr. Mitchell, on behalf of the state, I apologize for the monstrous error committed. All charges against you are dropped. You're free." John didn't move, Didn't believe it, couldn't believe it. I'm free? Free. And without deep, deep shame for what you went through. The handcuffs were removed. John rubbed his wrists, looked at his own hands as if they were alien. And then he looked at Sophia. She was crying, running down the aisle. Dad! Guards didn't try to stop her. John fell to his knees and Sophia threw herself into his arms, father and daughter embracing in the middle of the courtroom, while Dawson was dragged away screaming, and federal lawyers were already starting documentation to prosecute everyone involved in the conspiracy. You did it, John whispered into his daughter's hair. You really did it. I promised I'd save you. Sophia squeezed tighter. I promised. Brennan watched from afar. There was something wet in his eyes. In 23 years as a judge, he'd seen many things, but he'd never seen this. Never been part of such deep injustice. Never been part of the correction, either. Aunt Clara joined the embrace. The three stayed there in the middle of the courtroom, while the world spun around them. Lawyers running, reporters shouting questions from outside, Dawson being taken away. But for that family of three, nothing else mattered except being together again. 2 hours later, after all the paperwork was processed, John left the courthouse in normal clothes. Not orange uniform, clothes Aunt Clara had brought. Old jeans, flannel shirt, worn sneakers, clothes of a free man. The media surrounded them, cameras, microphones, questions shouted. Mr. Mitchell, how do you feel? Sophia, did you know your father was innocent? Are you going to sue the state? John protected Sophia with his body. No comment, we just want to go home. But one persistent reporter pushed a microphone in Sophia's face. Is it true you offered to heal the judge in exchange for your father's freedom? Sophia stopped, looked directly at the camera. I offered to heal the judge because he needed it. And I asked him to look at my father's case because my father is innocent. Judge Brennan did the right thing. He investigated properly. He found the truth. That's what judges should do. The answer went viral within hours. 9-year-old child giving a justice lesson to adults. Social media exploded, part supporting, part questioning, part calling it all a setup. But John didn't care. He was home, real home, not a cell, with his daughter, not behind glass with a phone, eating real food, not prison food, sleeping in a bed, not a metal bunk. On the first night he woke up 3 times thinking he was dreaming, that he'd open his eyes and be back in the cold cell. But every time he woke, he was in the small bedroom of the apartment, Sophia sleeping in the room next door, Aunt Clara on the living room couch. Free. He was really free. The federal investigation into Dawson unfolded quickly. With the video as primary evidence, plus the irregularities Thomas had discovered, the case was solid. Dawson tried to use his father's money and connections, tried expensive lawyers, tried to suppress evidence. It didn't work. 3 months later, he was convicted. 20 years for vehicular manslaughter, plus 5 for obstruction of justice, plus 3 for conspiracy. 28 years total, almost double what John had received for the crime he didn't commit. Poetic justice, someone commented on the news, but the story didn't end there, because Sophia had made a promise, and Sophia always kept her promises. 1 week after John's release, she returned to the courthouse, knocked on Brennan's office door. May I come in? He was doing paperwork, looked surprised. Sophia, what are you doing here? I came to finish what I started. Finish? Heal you. She entered, closing the door. I gave the first session. Now I need to continue. Brennan hesitated. That first session had been real. He'd felt it, had moved his toes, but afterward, in the following days, the sensation had diminished, almost disappeared, as if it were a temporary effect. Sophia, I appreciate it, but nothing. She approached, determined. I promised to get you on your feet, and I'm going to keep that promise. You've already done enough. You saved your father, exposed a corrupt official. You don't need to do more. It's not about need. It's about want. Sophia knelt in front of the chair. My mother told me to save the gift for when I could really help. You helped me. Now I want to help back. Brennan studied that child. 9 years old, but with the soul of someone 3 times older. It's going to drain you. It's going to hurt you. I know, but it's worth it. Why? Because you don't deserve to be trapped in a chair. Just like my father didn't deserve to be trapped in a cell. The comparison made Brennan smile sadly. They're different things. They're not. Prison is prison. Only yours nobody put you in. Life did, and I can take you out. So it began. 3 times a week after school, Sophia went to the courthouse. 30-minute sessions. She'd place her hands on his legs, concentrate, let the energy flow, and each time it got stronger. Brennan felt the change. Gradual, but real. In the second week, he could move the toes on both feet consistently. In the third, he felt tingling rising to his ankles. In the fourth, he moved his entire ankle 5 centimeters. It's working, he whispered, amazed. It's really working. Sophia smiled but was getting thinner, paler, dark circles deepening. John noticed. Sweetheart, you're killing yourself doing this. I'm not. I'm just tired. Sophia, Dad, I need to do this. Please understand. John understood, because he would have done the same for her, sacrificed whatever was necessary. So he let her. But he monitored closely. And if it started getting truly dangerous, he'd stop everything. In the 6th week, Brennan moved his entire leg, from hip to toe, small movement, weak, but movement. He cried. 58-year-old man, tough and austere federal judge, crying like a child. 5 years, he said between sobs, 5 years without feeling anything, and now I feel everything. Sophia was lying on the floor, exhausted but smiling. It's not over yet. You need to walk. Walk. You think I can? I know you can. Just needs more time, more sessions. But Sophia's body was giving signs it couldn't take much more. In the 7th week, she passed out in the middle of a session. John found her in Brennan's office, pale as paper, unconscious. "Call an ambulance!" he shouted. At the hospital, doctors ran tests, severe anemia, malnutrition, extreme exhaustion. "She's wearing herself out," the doctor said. "Doing what, I don't know. But she needs to stop, or there'll be permanent damage." John held his unconscious daughter's hand. "No more sessions, it's over." But when Sophia woke up, she protested. "It's almost there. He can almost stand. Just a few more weeks." "No, your health is more important. But I promised, and you kept it. You gave him back sensation, gave him back movement. That's already a miracle." Sophia cried, not from sadness, from frustration. She'd gotten so close to completing what she started. Brennan came to visit her in the hospital, pushed his own chair into the room. "I heard you're going to stop the sessions." "I don't want to stop." "I know, but your father is right. You've already done more than anyone could ask." He took the small hand. "Sophia, for 5 years I felt nothing. Now I feel, now I move. Maybe I'll never walk normally again, but I already have more than I had, thanks to you. But you deserve to walk. You deserve to stand like everyone else. And you deserve to grow up healthy, have a full life, not kill yourself healing a stubborn old man like me." Sophia smiled weakly. "You're not stubborn." "Yes, I am. Ask any lawyer who's ever worked with me." Brennan got serious. "You gave me an incredible gift, but the greatest gift wasn't healing my legs. It was reminding me why I became a judge, why I chose this career." "Why?" "To do what's right, even when it's difficult, even when it's unpopular. You, a 9-year-old child, taught me a lesson I'd forgotten, and for that I'm eternally grateful." Sophia stayed in the hospital 3 days. Fluids, rest, forced nutritious food. When she left, she had her color back, but was still weak. The weeks passed. Sophia returned to normal routine. School, homework, playing with classmates, being a child again. John went back to the shop, fixing cars, earning honest money, paying bills. Simple life, but happy. 2 months later, John received official notification. The state was offering compensation for the wrongful imprisonment. Large amount, very large. Enough to pay all medical debts, enough to buy a small house, enough for Sophia to have a college fund. "Are we going to accept it?" Sophia asked. "It doesn't bring time back," John said. Doesn't undo trauma, but it helps. So yes, we'll accept it. With the money they moved. Better apartment, safer neighborhood. Sophia changed to a school with better teachers. John expanded the shop, hired a helper, started working fewer hours and spending more time with his daughter. 6 months after everything, Sophia received an invitation. Brennan was having an event. I'd very much like you to be there. It's a surprise, but I think you'll like it. The event was in a rented hall. Not very large. Maybe 50 people. Brennan's work colleagues, family, some friends. Sophia entered holding her father's hand. Didn't understand what was happening until she saw. In the center of the hall there was a small stage, and on the stage, an empty chair. Not a wheelchair, a normal chair, and beside it, standing, leaning on a walker, was Brennan. Standing, legs trembling, walker holding most of the weight, but standing. My God, Sophia whispered. Brennan smiled when he saw her. Sophia, John, thank you for coming. He signaled for the assistant to bring a microphone. Everyone, thank you for being here today. You know that 5 years ago I lost the ability to walk. The accident took my wife and my legs on the same day. Doctors said I'd never walk again. And I believed them. He paused, took a deep breath. But 6 months ago, a little 9-year-old girl walked into my office and offered me something impossible. She said she could heal me. And I laughed. We all would have laughed. But she didn't give up. She insisted. And against all logic, all reason, all science, she was right. Murmurs of surprise in the hall. Sophia felt all heads turned to her. Sophia gave me 7 healing sessions. 7 sessions where she'd place her little hands on my dead legs and somehow brought life back to them. Sensation, movement. And when she had to stop by doctor's orders, I'd recovered 70% of sensation and 40% of movement. He looked at her directly. Doctors said it was impossible. That it must be placebo, that I was imagining it. But 6 months of intensive physical therapy later, taking advantage of what Sophia started, I'm here, standing, not perfectly, still need a walker. Maybe I always will, but I'm standing. Applause exploded. Sophia was crying. John, too. Aunt Clara, who'd also come, hugged both of them. Sophia, Brennan continued, you saved your father, exposed a corrupt official, and gave me back something I thought was lost forever. So today, I wanted to show you something. He signaled. The assistant removed the walker. Brennan stood alone, trembling, wobbling, but alone. And then he took a step. Small, unsteady, but a real step. Then another, and another. 5 steps total before needing the walker back. But 5 steps. 5 steps that shouldn't be possible. The hall exploded, people crying, people standing and applauding. Sophia ran to the stage. Brennan crouched with difficulty, and she hugged him tight. You walked, she whispered. You really walked. Because of you. All because of you. No, it was because of you too. You didn't give up. You continued physical therapy. You fought. We both fought. Brennan dried her tears gently. And we both won. The party continued for hours. Food, music, stories. Brennan introduced Sophia to everyone as the girl who made the impossible happen. Some believed. Others thought it was exaggeration, that it had been experimental surgery or secret treatment. But John and Sophia knew the truth, knew what had really happened, and that was enough. 2 years passed. Sophia turned 11. She was bigger, stronger, healthier. She'd learned to better dose the gift, used it occasionally, small healings, nothing that drained too much. Neighbor's cat with a broken paw, school classmate with a bad cut, small things. John prospered, the shop grew, he hired 2 mechanics, bought new equipment, gained reputation as honest and competent. Customers came back, referred friends, and Brennan kept walking, not perfectly, not without help, but he walked, retired the wheelchair, used a walker at home, a cane in court. It was slow but steady progress. Until one day, 3 years after everything, Brennan had a special case. 8-year-old child with leukemia. Poor family. Didn't have money for adequate treatment. They were asking in court for the state to pay. Brennan made sure they paid, but he also did something more. He called Sophia. Do you still heal people? Sometimes. Why? There's a child, very sick. I don't know if your gift works on cancer, but I tried to heal my mother from cancer. I couldn't. It was too advanced, too spread out. What if it was earlier? If caught at the beginning? Sophia thought, remembered her mother, the desperation of trying and failing, but also remembered the promise to use the gift when she could really help. I can try. That's how it started. Sophia visited the girl in the hospital. Nina, hair fallen from chemotherapy, thin body, big frightened eyes, but sweet smile. You're the girl who healed the judge, Nina said. I am, and I'm going to try to help you too. Promise? I promise to try. I can't promise it'll work, but I'll give everything I have. And she did. Short sessions, 3 times a week, half-hour each. Always with doctors monitoring, always with her father present to stop if it got dangerous. It took 6 months. 6 months of Sophia placing hands on Nina's fragile body, sending energy, sending life, fighting against cancer, trying to steal a child of only 8 years. And it worked, gradually, slowly, but it worked. The tumors shrank, the blood improved, the body responded. Doctors called it a miracle, spontaneous remission, luck. But Nina knew, her family knew, and when she was discharged, completely cured, the first thing she did was hug Sophia. You saved my life. We saved it together. You fought. I just helped. The news spread. Girl with healing gift. Some called it fraud, others exaggeration, others still divine work. Media wanted interviews, TV shows called, money offers appeared. John refused everything. My daughter isn't a circus act. She helps when she can, when she wants, and doesn't charge anything. But people started appearing, at the shop, at school, on the street, asking for help. One had cancer, another had paralysis, another had a rare disease without cure. Sophia tried to help when she could, but she couldn't help everyone, didn't have energy for that, so she learned to choose cases where she could really make a difference. Children mainly, because children deserved a chance to grow up. Years passed. Sophia grew, became a teenager, then a young adult. The gift never went away, but she learned its limits. Learned she couldn't save everyone, that some diseases were too big, some damage too deep, but she saved many, dozens, maybe hundreds over the years, always discreetly, always humble, never charging, never bragging. John aged, greyer hair, more tired body, but happy, fulfilled, watching his daughter grow, watching her use the gift wisely. And Brennan continued as a judge for another 10 years before retiring, never walked perfectly again, but he walked, and more importantly, never judged another case without investigating completely, without being absolutely certain. A 9-year-old girl taught me more about justice, he said in a retirement speech, than decades of law school. She taught me that doing what's right is worth any sacrifice, that truth always deserves to be sought, and that miracles happen when we least expect them. Sophia was in the audience, 24 years old now, medical student, wanting to scientifically understand the gift she had, wanting to use it better. After the speech, Brennan found her, now 73 years old, walking with a cane, but walking. Thank you, he said simply, for everything. Thank you to you for believing a crazy child. You weren't crazy. You were desperate, and I understand desperation. He smiled. You're going to be an excellent doctor. I'll try. You'll succeed, because you have something normal doctors don't. The gift? No. Compassion, determination, and courage to do the impossible. 15 years had passed since that day in court. 15 years since a 9-year-old girl had stood up and offered the impossible. 15 years since the impossible had happened. John was 67 years old now, retired, shop sold, living comfortably with money he'd saved, watching his daughter thrive. Sophia was a respected doctor, specialized in difficult cases others gave up on. She used science, used modern medicine, but when necessary, when everything else failed, she used the gift, discreetly, secretly, but she used it. And she saved lives, many lives. Brennan was 88 years old when he died, peacefully, in his sleep. At the funeral, Sophia spoke. Judge Brennan taught me that justice isn't about following blind rules. It's about seeking truth, about doing what's right even when it's difficult. He had flaws, made mistakes, but when he had a chance to correct them, he did. And that makes him a good man. Many people cried. Many people remembered the judge who'd been tough but fair, austere but compassionate, and who in the last 30 years of his life had walked thanks to a child's miracle. Years later, when Sophia was already old, white hair, wrinkled hands, but still capable of healing, someone asked, young reporter doing a story about her extraordinary life, "Do you regret anything, using so much of your gift, risking yourself so many times?" Sophia thought for a long time, looked out the window, saw grandchildren playing in the yard, saw the full life she'd lived. "No," she finally said, "because I learned something essential that day in court, when I was only 9 years old. I learned that sometimes the impossible only needs one thing." "What?" "A reason strong enough. And there's no stronger reason than protecting those you love, than doing what's right when no one else will, than believing when no one else believes." Sophia smiled. "My father taught me we never give up. My mother taught me to use the gift wisely. And Judge Brennan taught me that justice is worth any sacrifice." "And what do you want people to remember about you?" Sophia looked at the camera, at the millions who would watch. "That miracles don't come from special powers or divine gifts. Miracles come from ordinary people doing extraordinary things out of love, and that anyone, absolutely anyone, can make the impossible happen. They just need to have the courage to try." The interview ended. Sophia turned off the TV, looked at her own hands, old now, tired, but that had healed hundreds throughout her life, that had saved her father, that had made a judge walk, that had given hope when there was none. And she smiled, because in the end, it wasn't about the gift. It never was. It was about love, about justice, about never giving up even when everything seemed lost. It was about a little 9-year-old girl who stood up in a courtroom and said something impossible, and then made the impossible happen, and changed everything.